Stones of Strength podcast, an audio plinth upon which we will endeavor to centralize and showcase stories and information related to the lifting of historical and non-historical stones and the ongoing development and re-emergence of stone lifting culture. Welcome to episode 6 of the Stones of Strength podcast. So before we jump into the episode with the legendary Brett Nicol, we wanted to make sure that we gave a shout out to some of the upcoming events, as well as cover some of the events that have happened since we recorded the episode. So full disclosure, we recorded this episode with Brett a couple of weeks ago, but unfortunately, life circumstances, many of which were attributable to kids going back to school, bringing home illnesses, and just other things, injuries, event planning, it prevented us from being able to record this intro. So a lot has happened since we recorded this with Brett, and so we want to make sure that we cover those events. So the first one is actually one that's upcoming. If you're catching this episode when it releases, on September 23rd, there's an amazing event going on at the Honister Slate Mine in the UK called King of the Steens, and it's a fully stone-based strength event. There's 5 events, so one being stone to shoulder, one is a ring-based stone carry of the Fleetwood stones, which are similar to the Nicol stones, which you'll hear a lot about in this episode. There's a block press ladder. There's a lift of the Buttermere stone, and then there's a 5-stone run with a huge circular slate platform. And if you head on over to the King _O the underscore Steens, which is STYANS, Instagram, you'll see some videos of them testing the implements for the event. And the implements look amazing. The setting is pretty epic.
It's crazy.
I'm really looking forward to seeing the video and the coverage of this event as it's happening after it's completed. So on to events that have been completed since we recorded the episode. So a really big shout out to the Columbus Oktoberfest, which one of the organizers was a previous guest, Sean Urquhart. So it was, Oktoberfest, which many of you know is centered around great food, great beer, and a huge gathering. And then there was also a strongman component to it. So there was a strongman event also featuring the Steinborn lift, which, if you know what that is, it's essentially a deadlift from the depths of hell. And if you want to see more videos on the Steinborn lifting that happened, some of the other strength events, or even just general coverage from the Columbus Oktoberfest, which there was droves of people watching the strongman events. It looked like such an incredible atmosphere.
The crowd looked insane.
Yeah.
Like it was as wild as I've ever seen.
It looked like a concert, but it
exactly.
looked awesome.
Yeah.
Head over to Sean Urquhart's Facebook. Head over to Sean Urquhart's Instagram page to find more info and videos on that event.
On the note of previous guest, Ryan Stewart has returned back from a trip to the Basque Country, where he is the first North American to compete in the Basque Country stone lifting, and it looks incredible. So go over to his page, Stew Squatch, to check out some videos from that. We really hope to have him on in the coming months and just discuss about that trip, because it looked like an incredible opportunity, and I think there's so much that we could all learn from Ryan, having talked to him about that experience.
Yeah, he was even rubbing shoulders with Basque stone lifting royalty. So
yeah, he
check
was.
out his page for videos.
Super cool, and well deserved, Ryan. So congrats, man.
Absolutely.
I want to touch on our Modern Stones of Strength map. That is, you can see a link to that in the bio of our Stones of Strength podcast Instagram page. So we're up to 40 stones from a bunch of countries. People keep adding it, and it's fantastic. So you can reach out to us through the Instagram page. We can give you information on how to send it all in. For example, Jamie Gorian is setting up the I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong, Jamie. My Canadian accent doesn't necessarily do great with some of the Scottish English words, but the Ochil stone loop. So he's making a modern stone loop, and we've got that up there. We've got a number of ones from the States. We've got more from Canada, and one from the border between Belgium and Netherlands. And this one actually blew my mind away. When I got the message from Slock Chiara, that's his Instagram page, it just blew my mind. And it kind of epitomizes the concept of the ongoing history of modern stone lifting. And so I hope I don't butcher any of this, but it's basically on the border from Belgium and Netherlands, and it's where there was a battle in the Second World War. And it's actually on the battleground, and he's making it a tribute to the warriors that fought there, and it's called the Diablo Stone. And it kind of hit extra hard because apparently they called the Canadians the White Devils. And being Canadian, it's really cool to see somebody kind of translating what they called our countrymen that fought so hard in the war into a modern stone for people to lift. And obviously it's not just about the Canadian soldiers, and I don't mean to make it sound that way, but just the whole picture of what Slock is doing is incredible. My understanding to date from the air of this episode, nobody's lifted it yet. There's been a number of people that have tried. So check it out on our stone lifting map, and his Instagram page is Slock Chiara, and there's much more information on that, and it just looks very, very cool.
Yeah, and there's also a book too. So you lift the stone, you get your name in the book, and sort of to build on what David said, like this is an area where, as kids, on a date called Remembrance Day, where we take time to honor and remember fallen soldiers from previous wars that have, represented Canada and made, the ultimate sacrifice. We always recited a poem called "In Flanders Fields." The site where this stone is now held is very near to Flanders Fields, where nearly 4,000 young, brave Canadians lost their lives. So it's a very touching tribute, and one that we are now essentially honor bound to go and try at some point.
Kidding.
So
we wear, as Canadians on Remembrance Day, which is November 11th, we actually wear, probably for the couple weeks leading up, poppies, which is one of the flowers that grows there, and we wear it on our chest over our heart. So it's well done, Slock.
Yeah,
very, very cool, man. The McGregor Stone Lifting Games, the ladies' games, just finished their third one. That was run by Jamie Gorian. Jamie seems to be the kind of guy that does a great job of everything he does. The posts that I've seen about this look fantastic, and I just think it's really cool what he's done. He wanted to take the opportunity to run a lady-specific event just to showcase the strength that some of the women have out there with lifting stones, and I couldn't agree more. We just had one of our events. We can touch on that shortly, but one of our friends, like there was many strong women there. Our friend Sarah, though, in particular, just had the best lift of the day was by Sarah, and it was just incredible. But we'll touch on that shortly.
And the event that David's referring to, we called a gathering, not to be confused with the gathering, which also just happened. And something really interesting for anybody who wants to dig further into this incredible world of stone lifting. Martins Lises and Romark Weiss filmed an awesome episode of Strength Unknown, which is a series on Martin's YouTube page, where they actually not only went to the gathering, at which event Romark Weiss lifted the Dinnie Stones, became a successful Dinnie Stone lifter. Well, they also did a small Scottish stone tour with some local Scottish strength legends. A lot of the strong boys got out there, and there was an incredible showing of strength, especially with the number of shoulders of the Ardvarlic that happened on that day when the film crew was there. So I'm not going to spoil anything. We covered a lot of what happened at the gathering during this episode, but go check out that Strength Unknown episode if you want to take a look at what happened during that stone tour as well as the event.
Really want to give a very heartfelt thank you to Alyssa Aegis. She is an author. She just had a book come out called The Secrets of Giants. I've ordered it on Amazon. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but Alyssa is a fantastic woman. She's a very intelligent lady, and she is the one that actually wrote the GQ article called The Quest to Pick Up the Lost Lifting Stones of Ireland, and that is about another previous guest, David Keown. It is a very good read. She did right by all of us as far as we're concerned, and she also very, very kindly gave a shout out to Ryan Stewart's Utah Stones of Strength, as well as the Edmonton Stones of Strength. So for us, when Edmonton Stones of Strength was just an idea a year and a half ago, and to go from an idea to being written about in GQ magazine is just bizarre and humbling and fantastic. And
that being said, the irony is not lost on me about being mentioned in a magazine called Gentleman's Quarterly for being a knucklehead that lifts big rocks.
Yeah, so. It's very true. It's very, very true. But
the hero of that story is David Keown, who his story, if you don't know yet, so you can revisit our previous episode. It would have been episode 3 where we talked to David Keown. There was also a really cool episode that just came out with him on an Irish podcast host channel called Spirit Box, where David talks about his stone lifting journey and the journey to rediscover Ireland's lost history of stone lifting, as well as some of the sort of spiritual connotations to some of the stones. He actually, speaking about David Keown, I mean, for those of you who aren't following his journey, it is not over. It is just ramping up. There's a couple of pretty amazing stones that he's going to visit on October 7th that I'm very excited to see sort of the unveiling of. So head on over and check out his page and give him a follow over at Indiana Stones.
Speaking of David Keown, a gentleman by the name of Warren, who's Irish Feats of Strength on Instagram. This is a guy that has gone down and met David, and he actually helped him find or rediscover one of the stones in Ireland. And his wife, Jess, they came over from Ontario for our event, a gathering. They were 2 of 5 people that came over from Ontario to Alberta, including Bex Innes, Zach McGuire, and his wife, Chels. And for those of you that don't know, because Canada is very big, from where they flew to where we are is about 2,700 kilometers or 1,600 or 1,700, pardon me, miles.
A small journey, yeah.
A small journey, which is crazy for us. Like as mentioned before, the Edmonton Stones of Strength was just an idea a year and a half ago, and now we've had our second event. We have so many strong athletes and great people locally that have come out to it, and we've had 5 people travel from across the country for this event, and the day was just fantastic. As far as I'm concerned, it was a massive success.
Yeah.
Just so many positive people. There was no winner. There was no loser. There was no prizes. It was you versus the stone, just doing the best you could. I think almost everybody there hit a PR, which is fantastic. And everyone was super, super supportive. So to everybody near and far that came for that event, thank you.
Yeah. And speaking of event attendees, Zach, the Brute McGuire, the first person to lift a fairly, grueling 385-pound stone, which, grueling is right up his alley. Being the first person to lift that stone, which was recently found, we named it after Zach. So
well deserved, Zach. He's been a huge supporter of our Edmonton Stones of Strength, a huge advocate for stone lifting, and he's a gentleman, and it's always a pleasure to see him. So thanks, man.
Yeah, it was an incredibly amazing and humbling event. And so, speaking of humble and amazing, our guest on this episode is the one and only Brett Nicol. He is someone who is a community connector. He's an event host. He's a passionate and proud Scotsman. He's someone who is making strength history, not only based on his own physical prowess and capabilities, which have resulted in him lifting the Dinnie Stones over 497 times, but he's also the man who has created the Nicol Stones, which is a feat of strength that is now, it's a ringed stone walk that is being featured on the most prominent strength competition stage in the world, being Giants Live. He's just a kind and a genuine human being. I know that, he was a huge part of David's journey and experience lifting the Dinnie Stones, as he was with dozens and dozens and dozens of other people. And speaking of strength unknown, there's a very special shout out given to Brett at the end of that episode, because he had such a huge impact on not only Martine's trip to Scotland, but also in Romark's training leading up to a successful Dinnie lift. So he's just a very, very special person. And we're very, very happy to be able to chat with him and help share his story, because it's a very, very important one. So without further ado, our guest, Mr. Brett Nicol. Well, Brett Nicol, welcome to the Stones of Strength podcast. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Oh, amazing. No problem at all, lads.
Awesome. Well, let's start from the beginning. If you could kind of give us your intro into strength sports and when you first became aware of the Dinnie Stones, and kind of give us a couple of snapshots as we progress to today, where you are the most prolific Dinnie Stone lifter in history, as well as the steward, sort of in charge of taking care of the Dinnie Stones.
Right. Okay. Right. So when I was like 13, 14 years old, I actually used to do archery in Scotland, right? And there was a guy that ran the archery. His name was Sid Strachan, right? Now, he was a guy back in the 70s that crossed the bridge with a guy's harness holding the Dinnie Stones, right? Can't remember the name of the guy, Bill somebody, or I can't remember. But he carried him across the bridge, and Sid was a guy that also, round about Jack's era, that lifted the Dinnie Stones as well. And I kind of knew about them then because my father had said to me, look, that guy lifted famous stones, but you're young and you're just like, oh, whatever, a couple of stones, who keep them, right? So I did that, and I asked Sid about it, I just said, my dad said he lifted 2 famous stones. But to be fair to you lads, he was very reserved about it. He went, aye, all they'll do is break your back. That's all he said to me, right? So I was like, all right, fair enough. And then I always used to watch strength stuff with my dad, because my dad was a silver medalist at a European level at Shotokan karate, right?
Oh, okay.
So my dad and my uncle boxed and my granddad boxed, and so we all liked that kind of atmosphere in the house, you know, strongman, Jeff Cates, all that sort of thing. So I've always watched it, but the whole thing about the strength thing back in my day was that there was not such a thing as an 80 kilogram weight class or a 90 or 100. They were just massive men. So not one point in your life when I was younger did you think about doing that, because you were too small, right? So I used to watch it, and then I actually worked for a guy, and we were passing in Patark one day, and I was about 17. And he goes, oh, that's a famous dinner stones. And I was like, oh, I've heard about them when I was younger. So we jumped out the van, and we went over, and they were just sitting outside the hotel. And Colin lifted the big one with 2 hands, which was pretty impressive, to be honest with you. But I managed to lift the little one with 1 hand, right? And I was the only guy, 4 guys that was there could do that. And I was only, 10 stone, right, at that time. I'm not joking, I was tiny. Because I matured, I was a late maturer, believe it or not, in my 20s before I started growing properly. So I lifted it then, and like, the guy was like, holy shit, you did that with 1 hand. I was like, really? I just didn't really think about it, lads, because I didn't, at that time, they were known in my area, but not to the extent they are now. And then it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I had a friend that actually lifted them. And that got my head going, because I seen his lift and all that, and I was like, yeah. And I remember going to the hotel, and I picked up the big one, no bother, with 2 hands, and a little one again, I did it with 1 hand. And that planted the seed. I was like, right. But at that time, lads, people were doing it with straps, right?
Okay.
As well as like a hook grip. So I did my first lifting in 2008 with straps, which wasn't the easiest of lift either. Again, it's on YouTube. It certainly wasn't. The dates are wrong on YouTube, by the way, because it was posted after the fact, right? So it wasn't a really good lift to be. It was okay, right? But then my friend said to me after I did that, he goes, look, Brett, it's amazing what you did, but the real way to do it is without straps. And I was like, all right, okay. But to be fair to you lads, it only took me 3.5, 4 weeks to get to that point without straps.
Wow.
But it was because out here, I had an old 56er ring, right, from a 56er. And it had been cut off a 56er. So I just attached that to the rope and started like doing a hook grip like this. And I will be honest with you, it was Jim and Jack Shanks' picture that I seen, right? I seen Jack Shanks' hook grip on the picture, right? And my mate said, oh, you've got a DS grip and all that. So, but I couldn't do that one like that. I just couldn't do it, you know, how he tucks a finger in.
That's right.
Because I've always had big hands, it just never suited me that at all. So I just went to that, you know, like a normal hook grip, you know what I mean? Like that.
Absolutely.
It's always given me well. And that's when I started lifting them, believe it or not, lads. And I did it, oh God. I did it like the first few times I did it. It's crazy this, right? I did it and I was like, yeah, amazing. And I didn't even film it, right? Because it was just one of those spur of the moments. I was out with my missus and my wee son in his little buggy. I goes, I'm going to try it now. And I managed to do it, right? My missus was like, that was it? I goes, do you know something, lads? It was amazing. Because that feeling I've never had since then. But it was just that feeling of all of a sudden a weight in your hands, right? Like your whole body just, boom. It was like, oh, that was heavy, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's almost like when I used to box, whenever you hit somebody good, you never felt like you hit them, you know, because you went through them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like, because when I used to knock people down in the gym, and I was like, how did I do that? I didn't even hit you, Ken, but the power's through, and that was a bit like that with Dennis Stones. When I picked it up for the first time in a hook grip, it was just like, boom. Oh man! But then after that, I don't know, lads, I just started lifting them more and more because everybody in my area found out about it. They're like, oh, I heard you lifted tennis stones out straps. I was like, yeah. So I did it in front of them. And the goal was never to go where I am now. No chance. Right. To be fair to you lads, it was just one of those things, I just kept lifting them, and people would turn up to lift them, and I'd lift them in front of them. Just what's happening now, basically. Right? So that's pretty much it, really. Right?
How early, because they're such a big deal now, and obviously, global fame and are touted as being one of the original and most significant tests of strength. How early in the days was that when you first started lifting them? Like, how many recorded lifters were there at that time?
There was, when I lifted the Dinny Stones with bare hands, I was number 34.
Wow.
Yeah. So there'd only been 34 men before me recorded since the 50s. Well, since they were found, really.
Right.
Which is quite astonishing, really, because, there was other guys in front of me, but not, apart from, because the first time I lifted them out straps, I was only about 12 stone, right? 12 and a half stone.
And what would that be in kilograms, Brett? Sorry?
80 something, I think.
Okay.
Would it?
Yeah, that's pretty light. That's light to be lifting that much weight.
Yeah, no, but I used to box at middleweight.
Right.
Yeah? So 168 pounds or something like that. 170 pounds.
Right.
So I think I'm not great with kilograms and pounds.
No, that's fair enough. I'm not great at conversions either.
Yeah, so... But the thing is, once I started getting not bad at it, I still lifted them as easy back then as I do now, right? Once I got the method sorted, right?
Well, you make it look effortless. It's almost hilarious. It's like you change gravity or something when you grab those things and lift them, because it's just, you have it in the perfect slot and they just fly up. I remember when we went down and we saw you, met you almost a year ago, and you walked up in front of everyone and we got introduced, and it was so good to meet you in person. You just walked up to the Dinny Stones and just lifted them up and you go, there you go, that's all you got to do. And you made it just look so, first of all, you made the whole experience very welcoming, but you also just have so much strength, and you were just dialed into those stones. It's amazing to see.
Well, the thing is, it's weird because without sounding too, I'm not big head or anything, but
no, you're not.
When I'm on point, I actually don't feel them in my hands. Never have. It really does feel like there's nothing there. I know I'm moving weight, but if you were to tell me it was 330 kilos, I'd have laughed at you.
Right.
It just doesn't feel like that at all. To be fair to you, I've deadlifted 180 kilos. It feels 10 times worse, right? I think in that position, I've done it for so long, it's almost like muscle memory.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. Your nervous system is just dialed into them.
Oh, well, at Boyne Games this year, in front of Romark, and that, it was pretty... I didn't think, because I'd been out on a stone tour. I'd left my house at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I never got back till 2:30 the next morning, right? And then I had to meet Romark down at the Dinnies at 8:30 to load the Dinnies up. He wanted me to film me lifting them onto the trailer myself, right? And then we went up to our Boyne Games, and then I did 15 lifts up at Boyne Games in front of them, right?
Unbelievable.
But the lifts that I did at Boyne Games, the reps were, I would say it's the best lifting I've ever done. Don't ask me how, because I was tired, right? And when I went to go to lift them, I was like, oh my God. And I'll tell you one thing right now, lads. I know the minute I stand over them and touch that ring, if it's going to happen, I know. And you might think, look, has it ever failed? I've failed it in this zones, I've failed it twice at gatherings, right? Just the nerves, the occasion, like, oh shit, not thinking what I'm doing. So I love the fact that I'm able to be there when people are lifting. Yeah. Because I would actually genuinely say, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, all the lifters, I would say at least 100 lifters would have failed if I hadn't been there. Right. Easy.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. And actually, to your point, talking about how sort of as soon as you grab those reins and start lifting, you know whether or not they're going to go up. That was something that I really respected when David was there lifting. There was a couple of other people that were making attempts that weren't able to get them, and you knew right off the bat, based on their foot position or when they started to pull, whether or not it was going to go up, and you would step in and stop them if you didn't think that it was going to go up, because you didn't want them to fatigue their body or hurt themselves, because they had other opportunities to try. So it wasn't, from the place of discouraging them, is that those stones and how they should be moving well enough to be able to intervene early to stop someone from doing something that might not go their way, or end up fatiguing them so they can't take another crack at them. So
Well, I've seen so many injuries, boys, with these stones.
Yeah.
I've witnessed horrific injuries,
Yeah.
right, at them, right, and not just. I mean, I once seen a guy before they were locked up and chained up, and I don't even know where the guy was from, right? He couldn't speak English, and he tried to do a side by side, and he tore his lap, right? But he went like that. He went, oh, like that, and, oh, my side, and I was like, this is when they used to be sitting on their own.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, you okay? I said to him, you okay? He goes, no, something's happened. And I found out about a year later that he'd actually tore his lat. Right? So, and the thing is, that's why, kind of state the importance of trying to train for these things properly as well. Even straddle side by side. It's not something you should miss. I mean, the great thing is nowadays, people train in a gym, right? It's sometimes it frustrates me. The only frustration I get is sometimes when people say, "Oh, I only touched the pins twice," right? And it's like, yeah, but you've been in a gym, or you've got 20 years powerlifting experience, or you've got 10 as a strongman. I mean, like the guys that I knew back in my day, they were just working men. They didn't even go to a gym. I mean, I'd never touched a thing in my life, but I'm not saying, Brett, you're a hero. I'm not. But I'm saying it is different times we're in just now with people in gym equipment and stuff like that. You can, the pins will be awkward, but if you've got a good gym strength, there's a good high possible chance you're going to nail the tennis. You know what I mean? If you get your hands on the pins, there's no doubt about that.
And I think that's something we kind of touched on in our last episode about how the stone lifting community is a lot of very humble people. Like, this is not a place for braggarts. And I think a lot of people need to keep those things in context. When you're talking about lifting historical stones and using that from a place with which you're comparing yourselves to the capabilities of people from generations and generations and generations ago, you're comparing apples to oranges. You're comparing the lives of people who were farmers or fighters. They were working people testing themselves with the strength that they'd accumulated in their daily routines versus someone who has proper nutrition, is getting proper sleep. Lifting historical stones is not a way to tell if you are as good or better than the people of the past. It's a way to just test yourself within the context of your life and your capabilities, right? That's what it's about.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, honestly, I mean, as much as the tennis is getting done by a lot of people now, people don't seem to realise, like I said a couple of minutes ago, if I hadn't been there for some of these lifts, they would have failed miserably. So part of me likes to help people, but then you also need failures too, because it lets you realise it's still a hard challenge.
Yeah,
right?
It sure is a hard challenge.
I mean, it's definitely, in the last year and a half, the people that I've seen almost failing it to the people that have absolutely nailed it, it's just the contrast in men's sizes and shapes, it's just mind-blowing, right? And it definitely shows you that thing. You don't need to be big to be strong. There's no idea with that.
You do not.
No, you don't. You don't. And to be fair to you as well, body shape's got nothing to do with body types either. I mean, you've got this whole, you need to be ripped and all this sort of thing to be strong. That to me, cannot be farther from the truth if you tried.
Agreed.
Right? I mean, don't get me wrong, David, right? Having a great physique is a great thing, because if you've got that physique through grit and determination and proper nutrition, you will be a fit guy. When I used to box, I had a physique it would blow anybody away, right? I mean, I got tested for body fat content. I was just under 7%, right?
That's lean.
That's stage ready, yeah.
It was very lean, very, very lean. I mean, there was nobody in my area like that. And I was fit. I mean, obviously, I'm 51 now. And you have that middle-aged spread. I know that's no excuse, but I like food, lads.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
You know, when I used to train when I was younger, it's like, did I eat that, drink that, that days are all over, you know. But there is no excuse because healthiness is important, right? But like I say, the Dinnies is still a hard challenge, no matter what anybody thinks, right? I know there's been a lot of unbelievable lifts lately, but there's also been a lot that people haven't seen,
right?
That are not seen in videos of people failing, right?
Yeah. Well,
and there's no doubt about that. I mean, you know, if you don't approach them, I mean, obviously, David, you did an unbelievable lift, right? You're strong.
It felt good, yeah.
Unbelievable lift. But I mean, I've seen people they're so far away from doing it, it's unbelievable, right? And that's great for me and great for the community, great for the Dinnie Stones because it still shows you that it's a hard challenge. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So just before we move on to, we really want to get into the Nicol Stones and discuss your legacy you're leaving behind. But when was it that you took over, kind of being, I don't know what the proper term would be, but you're almost a steward for the Dinnie Stones, it seems. And so when did you take that over?
Well, I'll tell you what. Before all this was done, right? Because I've been always like I've always been able to manhandle them when I'm not under pressure, right? And they always used to have to get like the farmaways trapped in a trailer to take them up to Aboyne Games. And I said about 7-8 years ago, I'll take them up for you. And he goes, I'll get somebody to meet you there. I goes, that'd be daft, I'll take it myself. So I just took down my little trailer and did. So they've always kind of like trusted me with the Stones, if you know what I mean. But then when this whole thing turned into like a 2-minute thing and you had to be a referee and all that, I think with Barlogie Estate, it was just a natural choice to ask me to be there and for me to set them up for people if I didn't mind, because I do care about what we're doing, right? And I do care about in this community that everybody does the right things. I know accidents happen, lads. It does, right? I hate the witch hunting that goes on in stone lifting. Oh, he broke that, or he should have done this, and why did he drop it? It's like, listen, health and well-being is the most important thing. I mean, when I lifted in Fianna the other day, I stumbled backwards and I had to drop it, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to fall with no stones standing on my chest, right?
Yeah.
So it goes to the ground. So I was like, really not a steward, but they've always entrusted me to look after them when, like, taking it to Aboyne Games and then watching everybody. Because, I mean, that's just, I think that's been, oh God. When did I start taking my Aboyne Games? Probably 2015, maybe.
Okay.
That's when I first started. Because I think, if I can remember right, they were locked up for a couple of years. I can't remember how long it was. And that was a bit of a pain, right? Because they were locked up in a lock-up when Petark was getting done up. And then they took him back that time for Stoneland and uncovered them and stuff. But at that time, I couldn't have lifted him anyway because I'd severely broken my ankle about 3 months before that. So I virtually, when Stoneland was at Petark, that was the week I came off my crutches.
Okay.
So, and I had like a bar and 10 screws put in my foot and my leg and a plate on the other side. So there was no chance in God's earth that I was going to be lifting anything. And I didn't lift anything for, bloody hell, 6 months after that, right?
Yeah.
So basically, yeah.
Oh, that's tough, man. Because that was such a big documentary. I know that's what turned me on to the Dinnie Stones, and most people, if you talk to them, that was a lot of their first exposure to having seen the Dinnie Stones, and it still fire. I've seen it countless times, and it still fires me up. It was well done.
It was good for what it was. Yeah, absolutely. It was good for the people that were involved in it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, one last thing before we jump onto the Nicol Stone. So you are at the precipice of 500 Dinnie Stone lifts. And I understand that you've got something planned up to sort of commemorate that 500th lift?
Yeah, well, as far as I know, we're trying to get something for the 29th of September, right? Because Cerberus look after me, and they'd like to come down and film it, make a big deal about it.
Yeah,
awesome.
Because we're away to launch Nicol rings, right?
Perfect.
And pins, based on the Nicol Stones, because of the same heights, the same rings. I did get a set, but they weren't quite right. So they're excited about that as well. That is exciting because the the difference between the Dinny rings pins and my Nicol rings and pins is just, it's like a sumo lift, a deadlift. The same thing, but completely different.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
So, and they are like a different pickup, everything. So, no, the 29th, hopefully the 29th of September, right? But do you know something? Do you know something? It's just because I've had the opportunity to do it, right?
Well, you're built for him too. I think whatever you've done throughout your life, or your body mechanics, and definitely your hands, because you've got giant paws on you. The combination definitely has come, because when you, like I said, and we touched on it, but when you get in that position, you are just dialed. Like, it's effortless, man.
I do know in my head, right? And I've never really thought about this till the Boyne Games this year, right? That a gentleman came up to me and said, "You really lifted them with one leg, you know, Loon." And I went, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, it was your left leg you were lifting with, your right leg. But if you actually watch the video, my right leg's involved in my balance, but it's really my left leg is pumping everything."
Oh, right, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. That's your lead leg. Of course it would be.
So I'm kind of lifting him. I'm not saying, lads, I'm lifting him with one leg. I'm not.
No. Everyone listening will know what you're talking about. But that's just your technique, and it works so well.
If you watch the video in that Boyne Games, it's the first time I've ever really noticed that. It's like, it's on my left leg and my lower back.
Sure.
I mean, I've never looked at it like, as in, I've ever felt endangerment with it, right? I mean, I see some people lifting it, and I'm just like, oh my God, I can't wait till you put them down. Because it just looks like a horrific show with it. But I mean, don't get me wrong, lads. There's days when I've lifted them and they've felt awful.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, we all have those days.
But then and people have got to know that. It's like, okay, when I'm on point, which is probably 95% of the time, they feel like nothing.
Yeah.
But then you do look, David, you're a stone lifter, right? You're going to know this, right? Some days you can pick up 300-pound stone and it feels like it's nothing. And then you go pick it up a week later and it's like, doesn't even feel like the same stone.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. That's why, like, personally, I have, I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that we're doing the Modern Stones of Strength Google Maps thing, so everybody can get their own personal stones added in, and that's why we've asked people to submit videos of them weighing it if they want the weight put in, because just in that exact point, Brett, is some days a 300-pound stone will feel like 0 pounds, and some days it'll feel like a ton. Like Dale's just coming off a calf injury, and we have a stone that's about 335 or 334, pardon me. And some days Dale picks it up like it weighs 0 pounds, but he hasn't been training as much, and it probably felt 100 times as heavy, right?
I was lifting on Saturday. So it was the first time lifting in about 2 months, just after tearing my calf. And luckily, like, calf was pain free, but I was struggling, with some stones that used to be, and with this combination, I mean, lack of training. Maybe I hadn't eaten enough, but just, depending on day to day, things feel wildly different. So when someone says, "Oh, this is probably a 350-pound stone," you're like, it could be. Could also be 250 and you're just having a shitty day. Right?
Exactly.
100%. I mean, I got asked that question once from a guy who came up to my house, and he goes, "Does that feel?" I goes, "Every stone feels heavy to me. Every stone, except the Dinny stones, right? And I'm being honest here. But actual natural stones, they all feel heavy. It's just that I'm able to pick them up.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I've never, apart from anything under 100 kilos, anything over 100 kilos, it's got a bit of weight to it, no matter what you do.
Yeah, sure.
Right? It's just, unfortunate enough, you can keep going and lift more and more and more. But everybody's got that limit. I've got a limit. I mean, I've got a limit to where I want to be because I'm terrified about hurting myself.
Yes.
Right? And it's nothing to do with, watch what you're doing, boys. Don't hurt yourself. I don't want people off.
Yeah.
But, I have no need to go any further than what I need to go, right? I'm happy with the stones that I've lifted in my life, the stones that I've lifted in Scotland. I'm happy that I can lift the Dinny stones effortlessly like I do. And I'm hoping to leave a bit of a legacy with that behind me for my kids and stuff.
You already have. Yeah, it's secured.
That's what I'm hoping. And, but like I say, I think I mean, 300 pounds plus, it's a massive stone. It's gigantic. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, you get the likes of your Jamie Duncans and Andy Crawford's not just now, not big guys, but they're lifting. I mean, Jamie Duncan and Atlas Stones is insane.
Yes.
And Andy Crawford just now,
Oh, yeah.
Nuts Stones is insane as well.
Yeah,
you know,
amazing.
this is 100 kilo guys. You boys, David, you're insane.
It's insane.
Yeah, it is. And that the bearded boulder.
Yeah, Troy. Yeah,
Troy. Yeah.
I mean, that guy is just. It's you almost question the weight. It's like, is it the weight? Because you're making it look so simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just actually. I was just training with him, Brett. I was home for 5 minutes and turned around, and I dug out a new stone at our site, and I weighed it, and so I try and document with a video of every one of our stones so that there's no questions. But it's 400.9 pounds. So in kilos, I'm not sure if that's 183 kilos. Maybe I'm a bit off there, 185. But we lifted that today, and you talked about finding your limit. I think that was my limit, just because of the shape. Like, my bicep is as sore as it's ever been, but. Yeah, because some of them are so challenging with just the shape. It's not even the weight. It's being able to get it around your knees, right? Like, this one was so big, but that's the challenge. That's what's fun, is it's a puzzle. Like, Troy and I train well together because we will break a stone down, like when you get to those high-level ones, and we'll look for every handle, every angle, and you just really, the strength puzzle of it is half the fun, I think.
All right, but there's no textbook in lifting natural stones, right?
Sure.
It's the most silliest thing ever for people to say to other people, that's not the way you should lift it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because everybody's body's complete. It's like throwing a punch, right? I train a lad that fights, right? And I help him train him, pads and all that. There's a certain way he throws a punch that's hard for him. But it's not the way that a boxing trainer would probably say, oh no, you need to change that. But it works for him.
Sure.
He delivers full power like that. Everything's good with it. And it's a bit like Atlas Stone. I mean, some people are amazing at just pulling it right into the lap. I've never been good at that. I've always lifted it and pivoted it over my knees.
Right.
And I don't know why, but whenever I do that, I've got more strength to go at the top, right?
Yeah.
If I get it right up into my lap, I don't seem to get into a position where I feel comfortable. It's like, I suppose it's a bit like lifting the tennis stones. There's a process of doing it, right? And everybody's different, man, and that's why I encourage people to find their own feet in it, right? I mean, obviously you can advise people, right? You can say, like, if I was you in your shape, I'd try and do it like this. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Right. You know, I mean, I love what you guys are doing over there, but I mean, surely you call them testing stones rather than manhood stones because they're sizable.
Yeah,
right?
And they can't be manhood stones. Like, that's originally, I think there's a bit of at least from my understanding of Peter Martin's work, is the title manhood stone basically almost lost its meaning after the Battle of Culloden, because that's when the Highland way of life went away, and the manhood stone was something specifically to that culture before. And so that's why when we first got involved, we wanted to thinking about what we should call the Edmonton's manhood stones. And then I read Peter Martin's work and I went, we can't. Like, historically speaking, manhood stone almost had an end day. So it's a testing stone, a trial stone, a stone of strength.
Stone of strength,
Because I know that the manhood stones, they can't possibly be big stones because it was 14, 15-year-old boys that were lifting them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A
Good point. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's great what everybody's doing, and I just absolutely love the fact everybody's jumping on this, and there's excitement I can feel over here that, Christ, you can go to Canada now, and you boys are doing what you're doing, and America is doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
There's all different countries, so if you get an opportunity to go to these countries, you can go and join into their bit that they're trying to create just now, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Right? To me, it's mind-blowing. It's got such its popularity, and it is the last few years, it's just went through the roof.
It has, yeah. There's just been a cool global awakening, and I think even on David's point that what we're doing is we want to make sure we're drawing a very, very distinct line between what we're doing and creating new feats of strength versus trying to overshadow or trying to, misconstrue what we do with historical stones and historical feats of strength. And so, what we're trying to do is create a new history for strength and strength sports and stone lifting in our area. But when you talk about creating history now with regards to stones of strength and testing stones, the ones that come to our mind as far as global reach and now new popularity are the Nicol stones. What you have done with those Nicol stones is absolutely incredible. Can you kind of let us know how you kind of got the idea, or because obviously you're familiar.
Right now,
sorry, go ahead.
Right, I'll tell you what it was, lads. Right, I had it in my head that I was going to walk a Dennis Stones across the bridge. I had it in my head.
Yeah.
I dreamt about it. I wake up through the night thinking about it. Right, every minute of the day, there was an hour went past when I was like, I'm going to do this. So, in my brain, without anybody, because I didn't have anybody interfering with me then or trying to tell me what to do. I was quite like solitude, I suppose, if that's a word. It was all about. So I got them 2 stones. I actually got my first big Nicol stones, but obviously they're so much heavier than a day stone, it's impossible. So in my brain, it was a process, right? I'll make stones that there was nothing to do with the shapes and sizes. It was just to do with the height, right? So I got a stick and I kind of measured a stone, and I got a blacksmith guy to make my rings and all that. And I made that Nicol stones to add weight on for me to walk with the Dinny stones, right? And for about a year, I persevered, but just like everything else, because of my work and everything else, and I'm not making excuses, I hit a wall, right? I got to about 175 kilos, 135, and I was getting to about 8 or 9 feet with that, but then I just couldn't. Every day I'd wake up and I felt like I was hungover, like from alcohol.
Oh, and that central nervous system fatigue, yeah.
Yeah, and that was happening 3 or 4 times a week. I was just like, whoa. I was wide-eyed, and and this went on for, I couldn't, like one time I put 180 on it. I mean, obviously it's a higher pickup line, right? So that helps you as well. I put 108 on it, 140, and I scuffled them, right? I got oh God, say 6 or 7 little steps, and I was like, yeah, I've got this. If I just persevere, I've got it, right? So, but then this whole thing of waking up, feeling disheveled all the time and feeling like I just, not crap, but well, that's probably the word I should use, yeah. Feeling like shit.
Sure,
right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Right? And this happened for about 3 months, and then unfortunately my missus saw me outside with all the weights on it, and she actually said to me, "What are you doing?" I goes, "How?" She goes, "You looked like you were going to wait to fall apart there, and you look terrible, right? Because my face was bright red and all that." But you know something, lads? I actually needed her to say that to me to give me a realisation that I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Right? And at what cost would it have come? Right? Because I wasn't managing to progress anymore. Right? And to be honest with you, because like my ankle, I was well after I broke my ankle, he's never given me a jib, but at a certain weight, it's not that you get jib with my ankle, but it's just a certain weight that your brain tells you that's enough. I can't explain. Like, it's just like, I suppose it's like when you go into a boxing match and you know you're going to lose. Nothing can change your mind, right? Yeah. You know this is going to be a beauty tonight. There's a chance I'm going to lose here. Well, that chief lost already, right?
Right.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I kind of knew, but then at the time I was quite pally with a guy, Charlie, did the R. Blair Stones. And he used to come to my house and we used to have days here and stuff like that. And then he said to me that he was asked to run the IHGF, right, in Scotland. So he said to me, he goes, "Brett, how about using your stones that you trained with for the Dinnies?" Because I'd always still mess about with them at home, even after that. Because when you lift like 175, 135, when you cut that right back down again to 138, 114, it feels like nothing, right?
Yeah, for sure. Your condition.
That feels like nothing, right? So he asked me if we could use them, and that's basically because we'd use them in that, and it was such a crowd pleaser, eh?
Yeah.
The crowd were just like, wow. And at that time, lads, we let the people in the crowd come up and pick them up. And I mean, okay, 138 isn't heavy, but to a normal guy in the street and all that, they're just like, I don't know, somebody tried it. They're just like, aye, that's heavy. But they are heavy, right? Yeah. And the thing about nickel stones is they're not the heaviest stones out there. There's no doubt with that. I mean, all of a sudden, there's big stones that are coming and go, 170s, 150 and stuff like that. But, I mean, there's only the elite of the elite doing that sort of weight, right? It's not, we're coming away from what everybody's trying to get here, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The stone lifting community is about you. It's about you, Dale. It's about me. It's about Jamie Duncan. It's about people like that, you know. And I'm not saying the elite of the world, because I had Martin Lissus, and it was unbelievable to have him around.
That would have been very cool.
But that's the elite of the elite, right? That is like big human beings that were made to lift really heavy, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's and they are hard. I've actually found other stones that are heavier than mine, and mine are still harder.
Yeah. I felt the same thing, Brett. I've been actually meaning to say that. So before we had ever met, before we came to Scotland in Troy's competition, The Strongest Viking, he did a nickel stone walk. And we used the exact replica handles, and his stones were actually a little bit heavier than yours. It's just the ones he had. And so, I'd done those walks a little bit, maybe it was just because I had just done the Dinny stones, and I certainly was trying to save some of my energy because we were about to start a stone tour the next day and I think we did 12 stones. But when I picked your nickel stones up, and I just tried to take a few steps, I wasn't going for anything big or anything, but they were far more difficult than heavier stones with the exact same handles. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and do you know something? That is by chance. I mean, all this is by chance. That's why it was ace when your brother Dale looked at my little stone for me. I think it was all part of the big plan that your brother was supposed to be there to check that stone for me.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, Dale, he's good having a geologist.
Yeah, that's what I mean, but it's all part of the plan, is it? I mean, I think the nickel stones is ace, and people... And do you know what the great thing was this year, though, that I loved? At the Royal Albert Hall, they'd all trained for them, right? Everybody had trained for the first time. Everybody had known well in advance that the nickel stones were going to be there. But a lot of them athletes only got a foot further than what they did before, right? So they are really difficult.
Yes, right? They are.
I mean, okay, Eddie Williams was unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think he'd duplicate it again. God willing, kept him on his feet and his balance, and how he managed to hold on to them and swing about like he did. You probably never do that again. I mean, it was God willing it kept him on his feet. But to see everybody that had trained for them again still only get is what they did before was ace. It was just what it installs is they are difficult, right?
Oh yeah. And
even if you train for them, if you're not prepared for it and there's something slightly off, they're going to kick your ass. No doubt about it. And absolutely put you to the floor, right?
I think that's the beautiful balance that you have struck with them. And I think we had talked about it when we were at your house. And I guess for some context, after David lifted the Dinny stones, Brett was kind enough to invite us back to his house to lift the nickel stones and lift some of his other stones. And Brett was concerned about a potential crack in one of the nickel stones. So I got down and had a look just to see if that was something. And I can, I can say with confidence that if they're treated respectfully, they should not break. I think that's with all stones, right? Treat them with respect. You do your best. You try not to drop them, but treat them with respect. But in that, the nickel stones are achievable for a strong person that has put in the time and the dedication to be able to stand with them and potentially take a few steps. But the thing that's awesome is that when you see these world-class, gigantic humans carry these stones, it becomes a really great spectator event because they have these, and the task for them with walking them can last between 5 seconds to 30, 40 seconds, and you get to see these people battle their mental demons as they're taking these steps. They get a chance to put them down and take a breath and have another go to get the full distance. And you see these men just dig to the depths of their soul to get steps out of them. And it's maybe not something you get to see when you have these explosive max strength events. They're really, really grueling, and it really sort of reveals the grit that some of these men have.
Grit and pain too. The hands. Yeah. We haven't touched on the rings yet, Brett, but they hurt. The rings that you put on the Nicol stones hurt a lot.
You know why? This is crazy, lads. This is no joke, right? It sounds not ironic, but my father used to say to me when we were younger, some of the knowledge he used to have, if you want tough hands, right, put them through pain.
Absolutely.
Right? My dad used to say, if you want really strong hands, hang for trees with bits of rope, right? Hold on, not the rope you get now. Remember the old 3-ply Hessian rope? Right?
Okay.
Right.
I'm not sure if we have the same stuff over here, but I might be able to. Yeah, we might.
Yeah, well, it looks almost like hemp rope.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And hang on to them, and so in my not wisdom, but in my head, I was like, right, if I make these handles thinner, it'll toughen my hands up. Right. So that's why I got them made like that. And my blacksmith made them for me, who's no longer with us now. God bless his soul. Right. And he always believed in me as well, Dougie Reid. He always said, Brett, Ken, I've seen you doing your dinnies, man. It's amazing for all the size you loon. And that's how he spoke. Right. So he made them rings for me. And that was part of the plan, eh? If you can get to, because there's no doubt about it, you toughen your hands up, and it's a bit like Kevin Ferris. I said, Kevin, he goes, I want to do open hand. I go, but what's the point, right? It's just something you've got to think about, because it doesn't matter how good of a grip you've got. I mean, I can walk with my Nicol stones without a hook grip, but there's no point in doing that, because it's just something that you end up having to think about, and then everything else goes to shit. Right?
Good point.
So if you hook grip it, you never have to worry about your hands coming out unless they're sore. So it's one less thing to think about. Right? And you do find that most of the people now will hook grip them, right, at the top. Because it's why make something difficult, right? You've got to make it as easy as possible. I'll tell you, that's another thing I'll tell you, right? When I was lifting the dinner stones, I used to do back to back, the flat end to flat end.
Yeah.
Right? And I did that about, 150 times, say, right? And then one day I went down to Dinny's and somebody turned the big one round, right? And I just stood over and I picked it up, and that corner came up with me. And it was like somebody who put 2 springs underneath the stones, right? And I kid you not, that day, that night, in front of my wee son, I picked him up 11 times, right?
Wow.
And I just kept picking him up. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the hell? I kept saying to my son, are they off? He's going, they're off. I was like, because it felt so weightless, right? And I was like, and the guy from the restaurant came out and goes, holy shit, I just seen you doing that a few times. What's happened to you? And I was like, yeah. I goes, and I did it again. I goes, but that was just one of those kind of moments you get in your life where, like a light bulb goes, you know what I mean? I'm not stuff. And I never lifted him again, flat to flat. Because the way I see it was, why make things difficult for yourself when it can become easy, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Good point.
So, I suppose, back to Nicol stones. And that's how the Nicol stones came about, because I got a phone call for Colin Bryce, right?
Yeah.
Because he's actually friends with Charlie. And Charlie had actually told them about my stones and all that. But me and Charlie hadn't been in contact for a wee while due to circumstances, not bad ones. And Colin asked me about it, and I thought, oh, Christ, what you want my little stones for? I mean, your boys are going to annihilate them, but how wrong was I? It was just like, I mean, to be fair to you lads, it was okay, they hadn't trained for them, but it just showed you that even big men can look mortal.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For those people out there that don't know, Colin Bryce is one of the organizers of the World's Strongest Man. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, it's actually, he's one of the organizers of Giants Live.
Giants Live, pardon me. That's what I wanted to clarify. Okay.
Yeah. He's one of the guys that runs Giants Live with Dan. I think it's him and Dan. Well, it's definitely Dan Sadler. There's no doubt about that.
Okay.
So they run the Giants Live thing, which is a fantastic competition. I mean, it's well executed. They've done a good job in what they're doing. There's no doubt about that, right? So, but to see, even now, like I say, these guys having to train for it, they're still okay. I knew for a fact, right? I knew that once they got a hand of it, it was going to be 20 metres plus, right? Yeah. But even in the Royal Albert Hall, I won't mention some names, but they didn't even get remotely to where I thought they'd get to. And okay, they said they hadn't trained, hadn't done this and done that. But these are the elite of the world, right? And they still didn't manage. I mean, a few metres, that was it. It was like, it's amazing. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's also great in the sense that how fitting is it that a couple of stones are from the same area as Donald Dinnie stones, and they've become this world famous Nicol stone thing. They're not the heaviest in the world, but they're definitely the most awkward. There's no doubt about that for walking with, right?
I think that's something that speaks to this community, right? You've said a lot of this stuff, sort of you had an idea, you were creating a training tool for yourself, and just by chance or by circumstance, they're now being featured on a world stage. So for anyone in our community that is hesitant to, create a testing stone or a stone of strength or a feat of strength to get on our map or to advertise in the local community, like, just do it and put it out there. I'm not going to say, not every stone someone picks up and decides to create turn to a lifting stone has a chance of becoming the Nicol stones, but that doesn't mean you can't create something that could be meaningful to yourself or to other people in your community.
100, Dale, listen, 100%. I encourage everybody to do this. But to me, it's like, what's the word I can look for? Let time be the judgment of what you're doing. You know what I mean? I mean, there's too many people that would like to be famous for doing nothing.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Doing a couple of lifts. Let your lifting do the talking. Let your the things that you're doing. Because, I mean, the more you lift, the more you go out there, the more people appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right? There's no doubt about that. I mean, look, I hope other people make other stones and like lifted stones and put it out there. Because, I mean, you can have a stone and nobody gives a shit about it, right? But you can have a stone that maybe just catches your eye. My missus will say to me, how can a stone catch your eye? That's just a stone, But
no,
I know.
I'm a geologist. I'll tell you, there's lots of stones that catch my eye. So.
Yeah, but I'm a bit like that.
Yeah.
Like, honestly.
Yeah.
For oh my God, I would say for 2008 to 2011, every pile of stones and it got to the point where I was getting local farmers phoning me, Brett, I think I found your stone, right?
Yeah.
And I'd drive like 20 miles to go and look at his stone. It was like, nah, it's got a corner. And they would be upset. They'd be like, shit. Oh, well, I'll keep looking. And this people, just because they knew how obsessed I was about this whole thing, you know what I mean? I've got a many stone out there, which it's only 137 kilos. But it's got to be one of the nicest looking boulders, come smooth stone there is out there. I mean, it's like a mixture of Castle Menzies or the invert, just a bit bigger, Mm-hmm. And it's got the same difficulty. But then I've got guys coming here now that are putting that to the shoulder. It's like, holy Jesus, man. I mean, I don't think people will realise, like, okay, you boys are off the scale just now, especially you, David. You're just like, wow, it's amazing the speed at which you pick things up, man. And I have to commend you now, by the way, David, right? Your stone lifting at the moment is off the scale, Paul, right? And you keep doing what you're doing, because the more people see you, the more they realise how strong you actually are, right? I know how strong you are, because I've got appreciation of lifting stones and know what it feels like to lift them, right?
Sure, and Dale's not too far behind. He's only been at it a year. It's crazy how fast he's progressed.
I know, but there's one thing for sure, lads. You can become strong, right? But nothing beats being born strong, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I'm not going to say it, but I am going to say it. I was born strong.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? I was always strong at school. I was the smallest guy, but could throw everybody about, right?
Right.
And I was known for that. I was known as being this little wee guy that could throw up the about. I was tiny, right? And I'm all says, lads, until I was in my late 20s, I was only 11 and a half stone, 12 stone, 13 stone. I wasn't a big guy whatsoever, right? It wasn't until I was in my late 20s, early 30s that, even in my early 30s, I was still 12 and a half, 13 stone.
Yeah.
But I don't think as well that even the way I am now, okay, it does favour you a bit more because you've got this weight to ratio thing. There's no doubt about that, right? But like Mikey Brown, when I was about Mikey's weight, 90 stone, 90 kilograms, 95 stone, I was strong like Mikey is. I'm not as strong as what Mikey is now because Mikey and Andy are just off the scale.
Very, very strong boys.
Yeah.
Very strong guys.
Listen, they are the most humblest, nicest guys ever, right? It's like my friend Jamie Duncan. He's another very, very strong stone.
He seems like he's very strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, Atlas Stone's not. He's off the scale. There's no doubt about that. I mean, many years ago, he did a 165 Atlas Stone when he was 100 kilos up to a plinth without tackuless.
Yeah, that's
at that time
crazy squeeze.
Country, aye, amazing squeeze, David. Aye, yeah. But yeah, so that's really basically, I suppose, the Nicol Stones, how it's. But I will say one thing as well, lads. I actually thought that everybody would do better at the Royal Albert Hall than what they did, which was, it was good for the Nicol Stones, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Like, oh, Christ, everybody's still at that 23, 24 metre thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mostly. So, but it is hard, no doubt about it.
Very hard.
Look, I commend anybody that wants to do this crazy sport.
Absolutely. And I know that the sort of where the Nicol Stones are now has in many ways, but kind of come about by chance. But if you were to sort of think into the future about where you would like the Nicol Stones, the test of the Nicol Stones to go, or how you would like it to be remembered, like what would you say? Because we talked about the Dinny Stones, and you're lifting the Dinny Stones being something that's sort of a legacy that you're trying to leave for your children and other lifters. But I mean, in many ways, you're doing the exact same thing with the Nicol Stones, right? That's your family's namesake that are now on a world stage. So,
yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. To be honest with you, I do know that it's that I've never followed through with anything in my life properly, right? I've started this, I've done that, and I've always given up, or should have went through with it and never done. But this stone thing, I've went straight through with it, right? I've like persevered with when so many people round about me, family members, not due to being jealous, just due to being scared that I hurt myself.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I'd have said, okay, I'll stop. But no, I'm not, right? Okay, I've slowed down a bit, but I'm away to do a stone tour in October up at Andy Crawford's way, and they're all massive stones as well. Where would I like to, oh God, I don't know. Right, Sid, ask that question again. Where would I like it to what?
Yeah, if you sort of think about the future of the Nicol Stones, like is there if you could map it the future for the Nicol Stones, where would you like them to end up? How would you like them to be remembered?
I'd like them to be remembered as a proper strength challenge, right? And a strength meaning not just as in power, but everything: endurance, fitness, grip, the whole thing. I just think that you could have stones that are heavier, right? But it doesn't look good because, I mean, I think when you get heavier stones, the point of grimacing to the point of letting them go is very quick.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there doesn't look like it's as much as it's a challenge. But I think with the weight of the Nicol Stones, it's just one of those things where it's not due to me, just due by chance, that weight that they are and the shapes that they are, people grimace for about 10 feet, right? And the challenges, you can see the fitness. I just hope that it goes down as like a real strong Scottish feat, because it is a Scottish thing with the Dinny Stones. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And I think it's fitting that a local lad as well, like myself, who's brought up in this area, I mean, my missus's grandfather knew a guy that knew Donald Dinny, right?
Right.
So
The history is there.
he knew about them as well. So, and he loved me lifting him and liked my Nicol stones, thought it was amazing. I just hope that the whole story gets remembered, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm not just somebody who made a couple of stones and put them out there. I actually had a journey with all this.
Yeah,
For sure. Well, hopefully this podcast will help, being able to hear you tell the whole story about him. Hopefully that will help as well. And because we've learned a lot about it, and hopefully all those out there, whoever listens to this, they'll learn as well about this legacy you're leaving behind.
Well, the thing is, David, life's a wonderful thing. And when you've got health, it's even better, right? So capitalise on your health, right? Capitalise on being strong. Capitalise on making people happy, helping people. I mean, manners cost you nothing, right?
Right.
They cost you, right? So for me to be able to have I've had the odd comment, what a wonderful person Brett is, a great person to be around. That touches me. It's like, wow, he actually thought about saying that about me, which is amazing, right? So I'd like to hope that what I leave behind for my kids and all that, I'd be remembered as a good bloke, right? And made up a good strength challenge with the Nicol stones, and the fact that it's come from the area where it all started. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's something that's magical as well. I think I know where the actual Dinny stones came from, because I know where Donald Dinny lived down the road here, and I know that him and his father went up the hill with a cart and trailer to get the stones, and his dad walked down when he walked through the gate. I think I've seen that gate, and if you see the stones behind his house, they all look like the Dinny stones, right?
Okay.
They're all that, and
cool.
it's like I'm standing there with my mate James Blackwell. It's like, Jesus, it's like an eerie feeling. This, do you think this is where he got it? And it's like, well, they're kind of similar shapes and stuff. I'm not saying it was, but you just get this
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
little feeling. It's like, there's the gate down there that his father said he walked through a stone and put it on the back of the trailer, right? It's like, well, there's a gate there, and it was up behind his house that he stayed in, so that's the house he stayed in, so is that the gate down there? You're right?
Right.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
That is too cool.
It is cool. It is really cool, and when I was standing there with my mate 15 years ago, it was even cooler feeling then. It was like, I did a couple of whiskies in ourselves, and it was like, Jesus, this is quite spooky here.
Yeah. Could be where it all started, yeah.
No, but we don't start.
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
It sounds hocus pocus, right? I know that. But you can't help the way you feel at the time.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
I believe it entirely.
You,
Yeah, and it's like, and my friend had a vision of walking with him as well. And I truly believe that he did do it as well. 100%, right? Mm-hmm. I know that people will say, did he? It's like, well, yeah, I believe he did.
Yeah.
I mean, Peter Selden, is it Selden or Sendon from Australia, the maths teacher, right?
Okay.
He did it in front of Brian Shaw and all that the day that they did it on the bridge. Now, Peter walked 9 feet with them with no hook grip, right?
Wow.
And
Holy.
he's 6'2" and weighed 17.5 stone that day. And that was a day that I stood there and went, someone, Dinny definitely did it then.
Yeah.
Right? Because that guy's about the same size as Dinny. And Dinny had all these strength feats behind him. And here's Pete, a maths teacher. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
With no experience really of massive lifting stones and stuff. And they like Dinny. Right? So, yeah, I do truly believe that he did it. I mean, do you know something, boys? I was close to walking with a weight. Close. And that's just me. Right? That's just me. I was very close, and I know people that have walked with a weight and that. So, yeah, I just that question you've asked me, I'm a bit bewildered about that.
I think you answered it well, man. I think
you did say something in that though that I want to circle back on. You had said that you felt like throughout your life you haven't really followed through on things, and you also said that you hope that you're remembered as a kind person who treated people well. Something that you have very clearly followed through on is that kindness and treating people well and creating community around stone lifting, because having, being someone on the other side of the world and only having access to see what's happening through Instagram, even through those small snapshots, your event, The Gathering, it looked absolutely incredible. It looked like the best aspects of stone lifting occurring in the same place on the same day, with people doing incredible feats of strength, celebrating historical and non-historical stones, and then also supporting each other as a community, which was just such an amazing thing to see. And a lot of that comes through you and through Stevie Shanks. So
yeah, well, I'll
be
tell
very
you right
proud of
now,
that.
I've not mentioned Stevie, right, often, right, because Stevie, I was the first person in Scotland that Stevie reached out to, right, when he come to lift the Denny stones, right? So I've known Stevie before everybody else knew, right? And I knew that when we went out with Stoneland, that him and Martin had mentioned about the gathering and all that. And Stevie took the wings of it and created this, it's do the gathering, right? And I was like, yeah, I'll be there to help you. And I've been in it with him since the start, right? Mm-hmm. And then I came up with it, like, he's like, okay. And then I said, why don't we do a strongman comp? He's like, yeah, I've been thinking that as well. We come up with the events, and it's just took its wings. I mean, Stevie does a major, he created the actual gathering, but I've been with him since the start, right?
Yeah, right.
I've helped him in the start, and we've got a good thing. I mean, Stevie will say to you as well that he has to do it with me, end of story, right? We're a good, we get on well, me and Steve, we're good pals, and it just works, right? It works, and I suppose with the combination of the Nicol stones as well, to be honest with you lads,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
It's drawn people, like, to it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Nicol stones drew Mark Felix up to Petarch to try and break a record on him, right?
Wow.
But therefore, the Guinness Book of Records acknowledged Luke Stockman's record at the ISGF, which gave Luke a world record, and then Lawrence Shalley wanted to do them, and it's just been a knock-on effect. And then obviously Martin Liss is doing this Strength Unknown. Obviously, at some point, he was going to come to Scotland. I mean, he came to Scotland, and I went round with him and took him round stones and took him to Boyne Games and stuff like that. And because he was there, the Stockmans came down. So it's all just
so cool.
Massive whirlpool. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
It is, yeah.
Right? And I've seen that Stockmans really enjoyed themselves being there, right? They embraced being there, right? I could see that, and it's just, I think the gathering will never veer away from what we're doing at the gathering. It's always going to be at that level, right? Okay, next year, unannounced yet, we're going to have a bigger stone at the end because it's evolved.
Sure.
Right? The guys are getting stronger and they're getting bigger. So what we're going to do is I'm going to find about a 165, 168, and we're going to put it on at the end.
Awesome.
Remove the 100 and start from 115. And when the women come, we just move them. Vice versa.
Sure.
But I do think as well that the Nicol stones yet again has helped the gathering get to where it is as well. As much as the Dinny lifting, I think the gathering's evolved as well, right, to this natural stone lifting competition, right, which it's a bit primeval, is it? People want to do it.
Oh yeah, it is,
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a bit of that thing. It's like, okay, you can lift an Atlas stone, fair enough. You can stick tacky on it and all that. But there's just something a bit primeval about actually getting a natural stone that weighs a ton, sticking it in a field and getting asked somebody to put it up in a barrel, right?
Yeah.
Because I personally feel that strongman's went away from that, right? That everything's so fixed. Like, you've got your deadlift now, you've got your Viking press. It's all fixed implements,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
It's come away from what strongman, personally myself, should be, right? Whatever happened to pulling the boat up a jetty, right?
Right, yes.
To pulling down the straw, or like when Kazmaier had like 10 women in a cage,
right?
People can relate to that.
Sure.
You look at 7 women inside a cage and it's like, holy shit, he just went up and down like it's nothing,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
Or pulling a boat up a jetty and stuff. I personally think that, like the gathering, what you boys are going to do, other comps are doing, you need to get that back, because all the people in the audience, they were completely aware of the size of these stones, right? And yet I even heard people, women and men in the audience say, my God, that laddie's in a way to lift that things, because they look heavy.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, like, I'll watch The World's Strongest Man with my missus, and like there's that 730-pound deadlift. It's the two big, massive black things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 And I'll say to my missus, "Oh, it's 730 pounds." She's like, "Right." She's no clue, right?
Right.
Because they just look like. But yeah, if there were two ambles, everybody knows an amble's heavy.
Sure.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or two motorbikes on either side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I just hope that. I mean, the gathering this year it's mental because every year it just gets better, right? And we don't expect it to, but this year was just like it had some atmosphere, lads. Honestly,
It looked like
amazing.
it. It looked incredible.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I hope that one day you boys come over. Right?
I really hope we
Yeah.
can. It would be a privilege
Yeah.
to see it and hopefully compete in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You would definitely get a chance to compete in it, David. That I can guarantee you, pal. Right?
Right on.
It would be amazing for you to come and do it, right? It would. And I would get you a place in that, pal. Even Stevie would agree with me there. No problem. You know, because, I mean, this whole stone thing just now, it brings people together. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it sure does.
Yeah, it's just, I feel at the moment, it's like the Nicol stones, they're not about Brett Nicol anymore, right? They're not about me anymore. They're about Scotland, right?
Yeah.
They're about lifting stones for the world, if you know what I mean. It's like, okay, it's great my name's on it, and I think it's fantastic. And the story behind it, it's not like I just made a couple of stones and said, here, use them. There was substance behind them
For sure.
to begin with. You know, my journey and trying to do what I was doing. So it makes it all better as well. It's like what you boys are doing, right? You created that little place you've got with all the stones and all that, right? And up into your wood and all that sort of thing. As time progresses, that'll become more natural looking, right?
Yeah.
And become this thing where people want to go and do it, right?
I hope so.
Because I know that I take people back here, and lately some people have took back here. You can see they're almost like starstruck seeing my Nicol stones.
I felt that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's pretty like, I know, but I'll be honest with you, it's quite humbling. It's like, oh, is that them there? It's like, yeah. It's like, it's all right if I pick him up? It's like, yeah, there you go. Are you sure? It's like, yeah. All right, okay. You can see they're just like, holy shit, here we go. You know, that's just a magical thing to be able to create that for people, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's magical that you're able to do that, create this thing that everybody just so, like, not idolizes, but what's the word I could use?
They admire it, for sure, what you do.
Admire it, yeah, that's it. Admire it so much, you know. And I think with me lifting the Dinny Stones as much as I've heard, it gives it a bit more credibility as well. And the fact that I can walk with my stones, no bother as well. And okay, this is another thing. A lot of people say to me, oh, but you can walk with them. I don't walk with them all the time. No, I don't. I in the videos you see me walking my Nicol stones is when I'm walking them. I don't go out there and walk them every week or anything like that. No chance.
Sure, yeah, you'd be beat up too much.
Yeah.
It's impossible, right? Impossible. I mean, before the last stone tour we did, I did 5 stones lifting sessions. That was it, 5. But that's all I need to do to lift the things that I want to lift. Right?
Yeah.
Like I never went near the Arvolic, right? Didn't bother. It's like, no, we're not going on a stone tour for me to lift that to my lap. No chance. That Arvolic was to showcase you boys, right? You know, to let Martins, Lissus and Romark and that see the other side of stone lifting in Scotland. There is some major strong boys out there.
There
right?
is.
Yeah. Right. And they're not big guys either, right? And that's what I really wanted to. I hope that comes forward in the video as well when they come to do it, right? I really, really hope that that's put in there, right? Because these boys all worked really hard for this. You know what I mean?
Sure.
As you do.
Yeah.
I mean, what can I say? I just hope that one day you'll be remembered as not. You shouldn't say a pioneer, I suppose. No, I'm trying to think. Just somebody that propelled it more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
Is
that
a
you
word
have.
you say, lads?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To propel it more. Because I know in my area, I definitely relit the Dinny Stones. I know that. I do know that in the heart of my hearts, that I put fire in people around here again with being able to do what I did in 2010, 2011 when I was lifting into my best then as I am now.
I think, I don't know how you get any better than how you're lifting them now, Brett.
Yeah, well, I know I've made a lot of people, older gentlemen round here, very proud. I know that. They aren't necessarily with us anymore, because I think a lot of the gentlemen round here were looking for somebody, it sounds corny this, looking for somebody like me in the area to do it so easily,
Sure.
right? I think they did appreciate the fact that I was doing it as much as I was in doing it. But, I mean, like we said earlier on, lads, muscle memory, eh?
Yeah, well, I think part of their excitement might be too seeing someone like you who has respect for the stones as well as respect for the people coming to lift the stones, pick up the mantle and make sure that the celebration and the feat of strength surrounding lifting the Dinny stones is not something that's going to fizzle out. If anything, since your involvement, it has gone through the roof.
Oh yeah, I've helped so many people. It's I can't even start to people that have come here to train. Like, do you know what? I wish I had that. Right? Because I mean, when I was trying to lift the Dinny stones, I mean, a laddie that lifted them that I knew, he had no training method. He just did what I did. I had a couple of granite lentils out there that I tied bits of rope round and was just lifting them off the ground, right? Yeah. And I knew with Jim Spleen's picture and Jack Shank's picture that you had to lift them like in a straddle form, because side by side was even known about then. Just when even people didn't even think about it, right? Even though in my area people said that you walked them, right? But picking them up, that's how the pictures were of picking them up, was all in straddle, right? So, you know, I don't know. I just think it's great what everybody's doing. I just hope to be remembered as somebody who was really good at lifting them, right? That's what I hope, right? And I do know I'm without sounding like a Jake, I am quick at the straddle on them. There's no doubt about that. It's spontaneous for me when I'm on form. There's no hesitation whatsoever. You know, they're just off the ground, which has come with time and effort, though, lads. You know what I mean? Just the more you do things, look, you, David, of all people, I've watched your journey, man, right? I've seen your journey. And Dale, I haven't seen much of your videos, to be honest with you, but I've seen David's, and I've seen how much you've progressed. And that's just with time and effort, man.
Sure.
Right?
And we love it. And you know what, as we wrap up here, Brett, I just want to thank you on the record here, because when I reached out to you, well, it was well over a year ago now when we decided to get the trip to Scotland planned, you were just so welcoming and open, and it meant a lot that, you know, I could just reach out and chat with you. And so you've been a big part of my journey. So thank you for being so open to everyone in this community and helping progress it. And I don't know, you've been a big part of my adventure in this so far. So thank you for everything.
Oh, that's amazing. Listen, guys, the venture's just started. Right?
That's right.
Yeah, it's for sure.
Just started, right?
That's very true.
Good point.
Let's not divide away from the picture here, right? My journey's just started. It's changed another chapter again.
Absolutely.
Right? It's went to this other bit where it's 500. So does it go to 600?
It does. Oh, yeah, it does.
We're looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
Right?
We're looking forward to seeing it.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
You know, that's the way I see it. It's like, well, 500. I think, to be fair to you lads, it sounds corny as it is. If I get to the 500, well, that's it done, is it? It's that, I think, with that Eddie Hall 500 deadlift, that number in everybody's head now is just a done number, if you know what I mean.
It's a benchmark, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of my friends said it to me when I was at 460, when you reach the 500, pal, that's it. That's history. Just bang, right? It's unbeatable. It's undoable again. Because even if you wanted to do it and they were open to the public, you've only got 15 lifts, right? And your hands get busted, no matter what, right? No matter how tough your hands are. So you'd have to do that about 20 times to get to my record. And I don't think anybody's going to want to bust their hands 20 times to do it.
No,
right?
Probably not.
You know I think that's safe with you. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so it's great, and it's fitting that. Look, in any million years did I ever think I'd be sitting speaking to a couple of guys like yourself halfway around the world talking about stones? Did you?
Awesome.
Did you actually foresee this 5 years ago?
No, I didn't foresee it 1 year ago.
Yeah.
Just Dale had the idea,
but you've already met and spoken to.
Yeah.
Like Ryan Stewart and all that. I mean, that guy just keeps going.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's an animal.
Yeah, he is. And I like his enthusiasm. I like what he's doing. That's Sean Urquhart. Is it Sean Urquhart?
That's right. He's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a big, strong dude, right?
Yeah.
And loves lifting stones, right?
Nice.
And then you get over here, you've got likes of myself and countless people over here. And then now we've got just the whole planet looking at it. And hopefully, as well, with Martie's Liss's Strength Unknown, it's going to be open to another heap of people.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
The doors keep opening. I think one thing just before and close, the community keeps getting bigger, but keeps getting, I think, more and more connected. So it's just such a neat thing to happen that, these sort of degrees of separation between people on the other side of the globe sort of are, they're disappearing by way of stone lifting. So someone that you may never ever expect to encounter in your entire life, you're connecting with because you share a passion about lifting stones.
For sure.
All right, and I know, before you wrap it up as well, what I'd like for everybody to know as well is that, I've got 100 kilo stone out here, and I've got 2 people that I've had that have come here and can only lift that, but it's still amazing.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you boys, you've got to have stones that are accessible to get other people involved in it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Lots of small ones.
Have this feeling of weight in their hands, right? It's not all about the 175 kilos or the 250 kilo stone or blah, blah, blah. It's like, whoa, lads here, right? It's about bringing a community together of people of different strengths and size. Look, when I was at that stone tour, I was the weakest link, right, out the lot. But it didn't discourage me.
Good.
Right? It didn't discourage me at all because I still felt like I did good lifts that day for me.
Absolutely. That's what it's about.
That's absolutely what it's about.
It was an egoless day. There was no egos there at all, right? And that's what I love. I love that feeling of being around a heap of strong blokes, and it's just a challenge to ourselves, And that's what we need to put forward to everybody here, lads. That stone lifting in the community is about a challenge to yourself, right? Definitely. It's not so much about the lifting of the stone; it's the people you meet.
Sure.
And what
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Brett. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please be so kind as to leave the show a review and then follow us over on Instagram at stonesofstrength_podcast.